Good afternoon, everybody. It is Thursday, April 30th, 2020, and you're tuned in to the noon live stream show. Now, of course, usually it's the big boss man himself, Ezra Levant, in this chair, but every Tuesday and Thursday, it is going to be Sheila and I, at least on a temporary basis, while Ezra completes his super special and important project, and you won't want to miss that. And without further ado, I want to say hello to my lovely co-host, and Sheila is going to explain what it is that we do here for the next hour.
Sure. Hey, David. Great to be with you for the next hour. And again, this is going to be the fastest hour of work that you and I do today. I guarantee it. What we are doing here today is, well, interacting with each other for once, which is great, but also interacting with our viewers at home and also giving our viewers at home a chance to willingly support the work we do here. So it's live, and there's a live chat that's always pretty robust. There's always a pretty decent conversation happening amongst our viewers in the live chat. But also, if you'd like to support the work that we do here at Rebel News, because we'll never take a dime from the government, and we're grassroots supported. We're not like CBC. We're not taking your tax dollars. You can do something called a super chat, and YouTube takes some of that, but we get some of it, and you can give a donation, however much you give us, that it will post your super chat to the top of the page. We'll see it. If we don't see it, one of our producers and trained broadcast professionals in the office will see it and then send it to me, probably, because David can't talk and use his computer at once, and I can do that and a couple of other things. And so we'll see it, we'll read it, and it's a good way for you to focus the conversation, too. If there's something you'd like us to talk about, put it in a super chat and get our attention on it, and we'll talk.
And Sheila, I think the first order of business today, it's another tragedy, unfortunately. It is about the Canadian Armed Forces helicopter going down in Greece. Presumably 6 servicemen are dead. And Justin Trudeau, he made his 11:15 address. He led off with it, as well he should. Of course, he was late for the 11:15. I think it's that commute from, the bedroom to the front lawn. There was, I don't know, something got in his way. He had to navigate around that ottoman or something. But in any event, I think we're going to play a clip. And I'll say this, Justin Trudeau did say all the right things. My problem, Sheila, is, does he really believe what he's saying? Is he really sincere? Without further ado, let's play that clip of what the Prime Minister had to say about an hour ago.
Bonjour tout le monde.
Good morning, everyone.
Yesterday, a Royal Canadian Navy helicopter on a NATO mission, carrying 6 members of the Canadian Armed Forces, went down with all hands in the Ionian Sea off the coast of Greece. They were flying from the Canadian naval frigate HMCS Fredericton, home port of Halifax, as part of Operation Reassurance. 1 casualty was recovered, and 5 are missing. All of them are heroes. Each of them will leave a void that cannot be filled. On behalf of all Canadians, I want to offer my deepest support to their families, their friends, their shipmates, and their fellow CAF members. This is another very hard day for Halifax, for Nova Scotia, and for our armed forces families. I spoke to NATO Secretary General Stoltenberg earlier this morning, who offers support and assistance in the times to come. In the coming days, there will be many questions about how this tragedy occurred, and I can assure you we will get answers in due course.
Yesterday,
Yeah, so like I said, he said the right things, and he went on further in English after he did the French address. But 2 things, Sheila, of course. Here is Justin Trudeau calling these individuals heroes, which I do subscribe to. But this was the same man a couple of years ago in Edmonton that told a veteran that you, the collective royal you here, in terms of what the veterans are asking for, it's too much. And secondly, Sheila, what he says later on when he's listing off all the accomplishments, all the services that our Canadian Armed Forces personnel engage in, he talked about fighting terrorism. Yeah, fighting terrorism, you mean like the terrorists that come back to Canada and get an 8-figure check for maiming and killing our NATO allies? That kind of fight against terrorism? I'm just saying he said the right things. He looks sincere, but I don't know, Sheila. I don't think this guy's heart is in it at all. I think he just really looks upon the military like his father did, with utter contempt.
Yeah, I think we'll look back and realize that this is just another decade of darkness for the Canadian military. But yeah, Justin Trudeau does have somebody writing the words that he says to Canadians every single day, and that person realizes what the right things to say are. But Justin Trudeau, when he is saying things that somebody hasn't written for him, when he has to formulate his own thoughts, when he's got to grind a couple brain cells together and hope one of them survives, he always says something idiotic to the Canadian military. Sure. You pointed out Brock Blazchuk, wounded veteran in Edmonton, waits all day to talk to Justin Trudeau, wants to talk to Justin Trudeau about his pension and how the Liberals continue to fight our veterans in court. And, it's something the Conservatives started and the Liberals said that they would stop, but the Liberals have actually continued these battles with our veterans. He said, you're asking for more than we are willing to give. Yeah. And Justin Trudeau says more than we are willing to give, but no, it's more than he is willing to give, because I think everyday Canadians would say, give them what they were promised, give them what they deserve, and that's whatever it takes. And, it's true. Justin Trudeau says, they're fighting terrorism. Well, Justin Trudeau's terrorism and my terrorism are clearly two different things, because Justin Trudeau rewards terrorists with, payouts, structures the payout in a way that allows that terrorist to keep the money hidden from the widow of the man that he killed, and then the Liberals go on to question anybody who says that's ridiculous by calling them racist. I mean, it's just insane. It's so saccharine. I wanted to take out an earbud while he was talking.
I'm with you 100%, Sheila. And it should be noted, too, that, when that $10.5 million was given to Omar Khadr, who belongs to Canada's al-Qaeda family, they are unabashed supporters of these terrorism organizations that are the men and women in uniform are ostensibly fighting to preserve our freedom. What did the Justin Trudeau Liberals say about that $10.5 million? Well, we would have fought this in court, but the legal fees, this could have been more than $20 million. Oh, I get it. So suddenly when it comes to Omar Khadr, you guys are fiscal conservatives? Suddenly $20 million is a big amount for a government that throws billions of dollars around like a drunken sailor with a pocket full of nickels. I mean, give me a break, Sheila. Like I said, it's just, I hate to see this guy with these crocodile tears give an address like that when we know that behind the mask he doesn't care about the military, in fact, and has a spot in his heart for the people in our country who hate us and hate our lifestyle. It's absolutely appalling.
Well, yeah, with regard to Omar Khadr's payout, let's even concede the fact that they thought it was cheaper to pay him out than fight him in court. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it would have been, but whatever. Let's just concede that for a second. Did they have to structure the payout in secret then? The only reason anybody knows about it is that it was leaked. Somebody within, somebody who is involved leaked it to the media, and then we've seen the documents where the Liberals are scrambling to come up with a communications plan. They didn't have to structure it in secret in a way that it would deny a widow a judgment that she's already won in a U.S. court. And the government so far has been absolutely no help trying to do the right thing by that woman and help her through the process of getting access to Omar Khadr's millions, which I did find some of them, by the way. But yeah, we do have super chats already. Look at that. Okay. Let's get to those. And I saw them rolling by. Oh, I see a warning. Okay. Thank you, Justin, Mr. Producer. There was a warning in all capitals for me. Okay, so.
Oh, no.
It wasn't this one, though. Proud Boys Calgary gives us $6.99 Canadian. Trudeau's favorite country, aside from Canada, is China. Do you think that it's aside from Canada? I don't know.
And you know what,
China,
Sheila? That's not rhetoric. He said, we've talked about this several times, about 6 years ago when he was addressing a gathering of women in Toronto, that I'm paraphrasing right now, but the words, you can look up the exact order of the quote, but it was basically, he said he has a admiration for the kind of basic dictatorship that China is when it comes to getting things done. To hear a leader of a future leader of a democracy, wasn't prime minister at the time, say that. And again, if you, I, or Kian can ever get on to one of these pressers, because allegedly it's random chance who gets to ask questions on the phone, yet amazingly, we are always excluded. So yeah, tomorrow, folks, if you believe that, buy the Lotto Max ticket. I think it's up to 55 million. That's the question I would desperately want to ask the Prime Minister. Given the economic and health carnage China has most recently unleashed on the world, I think this is the third pandemic in a row that originated out of China. Do you still have that basic admiration for this basic dictatorship? I wonder how we'd answer that question, Sheila, because, doesn't want to offend the Mandarins in Beijing, not with that UN Security Council seat maybe in the offing. What a disgrace this man is.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure he might even reply that he does admire the fact that they could just lock down their citizens and strip them of their civil liberties to deal with the virus that they caused. I'm sure, when you don't have to worry about charter rights, you can do whatever the hell you want. And it feels like that's sort of the path that especially our municipal governments are going down right now. But I should have finished reading that super chat because I only got halfway through it. Trudeau's favorite country aside from Canada is China because of the basic dictatorship. Shows how he wants to run the country. Exactly. Also, CCP must be destroyed. Andy gives us $2 Canadian. Says, have you watched the recent London Real interviews? I have not. David, do you know what that's about? Or
no, I don't.
I'm putting it on my thing to watch after. I always have a big long list of things that I want to read or watch after we get off air, because our viewers are so engaged. They also read the internet before 9 a.m.
Now make sure you don't mix that up with your other lists, like your grocery list, your laundry list, that sort of thing, Sheila. So just keep everything in order. There's my free advice for you.
Thank you. I can't imagine you do a lot of grocery shopping. Okay, there's Canadian, AA gives us $5.49 Canadian, says Rebel should sue for access to national press events. Are you sharing a brain with the boss? Usually that's me that shares a brain with the boss, which is a little bit creepy because I don't know if another woman on the planet wants to share a brain with Ezra Levant, but a lot of times we're on the same wavelength.
What are you saying?
It's disconcerting for me. It's very, because he'll say stuff on air and I'm like, I know I didn't say it to him, but he said it and it's off-putting. It's probably good for my career, but it's slightly off-putting for me. Okay. Be careful with this one. Not sure how much you want to read. That's the warning from Justin, Mr. Producer. From Kim John Biggin, gives us £2. David and Sheila, have you seen Michael Hunt yet? Nope, have not. And I know you use the abbreviated Mike, trying to catch me up. Get me to say something stupid on air. You know what?
Oh, you naughty man.
I'll take your £2. And I think now we're all caught up.
Okay, then. And by the way, Sheila, we should, since we were speaking of adorable little Omar, we should make mention of our colleague Kian Bextey's piece that went up yesterday. That, well, what do you know? It seems like Omar is still sucking from the public teat, as if 10.5 million wasn't enough. It looks like that speaking engagement at Dalhousie was a financial boondoggle, and because institutions like Dalhousie they do indeed get taxpayer funds, again, me, you, and 38 million other Canadians are on the hook. And I'm just wondering, does Mr. Producer have a clip of, we don't have a clip, but it was absolutely astonishing, Sheila. Ezra put out such an incredible video where he was bringing it to the attention of Air Canada employees and the people at the Halifax airport that I think you got a guy on the no-fly list that's flying, and law enforcement got right on that. They got right on Ezra's case to back off or face charges. That was one of the most beautiful exchanges, if I remember it correctly. The police officer was saying to Ezra, "You don't know how close you are to being arrested," and Ezra responded, "You don't know how close you are to getting a lawsuit filed against you." Sheila, how does this happen? How is it that this institution footed a bill that was more expenses than revenue coming in, so indirectly the Canadian public pay for this? And why would anyone want to go and listen to this malicious terrorist spout the filth that he does? I don't get it. Can you kind of connect the dots for me, please?
Well, the thing is, it sounds like Canadians didn't really want to hear it, because I just looked over those documents briefly as they came in. I haven't watched Ian's full story yet, but it sounds like the event lost money.
Yep.
Because people don't want to see this. They don't want to go listen to a terrorist get celebrated and normalized by a bunch of academics existing in a bubble. The idea that they thought that this was something that people would be interested in and supportive of. And here's the thing, we didn't want the event canceled. That's not where we were at. We're just like, how gross of you to invite him in the first place. But we're free speechers. And as it turns out, free speech wins the day, and the free market wins the day, because nobody was interested in listening to what a convicted war criminal had to say about how hard his life has been since he committed a war crime, is basically exonerated despite confessing to it, is completely normalized within academia and the mainstream left, for that matter, and how he's become a multimillionaire all off the backs of Canadian taxpayers. It turns a normal person's stomach. And I think all of this, know what, I'm going to walk back. Yeah. None of this is going to be a wake-up call for academia. They're just going to continue to do this again. They will.
No, I think you've nailed it, Sheila.
Those normal people aren't getting how wonderful Omar Khadr is. They're just going to double down.
No, I think you're right, because if we look at some of the academics at the universities and colleges in Canada, we know they are uber progressive. We know they are outright Marxists. They hate America, they hate Trump, they hate the idea of capitalism. So the very fact that it lost money and that we collectively have to subsidize it, they would wear that as a badge of honor. They would say the ends justify the means. And this is their poster boy that they're trotting out. And why do they do it? Well, I guess because they can do it. They're probably tenured, and this is their way of virtue signaling. And maybe in their book, Sheila, making a profit would be a heinous offense, as opposed to having a killer terrorist address students on campus. But man, the world's upside down sometimes, isn't it?
Well, I think, as much as the idea of Omar Khadr getting paid and treated like royalty to go out and speak to this event, what we know now is this is a good news story of normal Canadians trying to send a message to academia. Are they going to get the message? Probably not. Now we have more super chat. We have one from JC Steck, gives us $5 Canadian. Great work, Rebel News. Well, thank you. That's friendly. David, I think you need to change the battery in your microphone. You're getting a little staticky. One from David Sutherland gives us $5 Canadian. I want to know who's cutting Trudeau's hair while he's in isolation. Is he getting haircuts in there? I know he's sort of getting a little salt and peppery in places. And his hair is looking more foppish than normal. Is he getting a haircut? I don't know. I feel like he eats a lot of vegan food, and because of that, his hair doesn't grow as fast as normal men who eat a lot of meat. That's just my unscientific opinion of why his hair isn't as long as everybody else's. I don't know if he's getting black market haircuts, but I think maybe his diet doesn't lend itself to proper hair growth.
Well, if anyone can send me the name of a black market barber, I think I'm going to break the COVID-19 safety protocols. This melon hasn't been touched by a barber's scissors for 2 months now. It's getting out of control, and there must be a way. It'd be great, Sheila, if the Marvel Comics universe was real, that a guy like Dr. Octopus existed so he could extend his tentacles and give you a haircut, and we could legally do the 2-meter distance that we're supposed to be observing. What do you think about that, Wonder Woman?
I think you look like a cross between a ginger-haired Albert Einstein and a chia pet, but it's becoming of you. If anyone can pull that off, it's you.
Well, that's what my enemies like to say. Hair by Chia Pet, body by Tim Hortons. Way to rub it in, Sheila Gunreed.
Oh, God. Okay, we got one from Pusha. Alexander gives us $5 Canadian. How does our parliament not care to run parliament? Classified info over Chinese video conference app Zoom. There are some concerns about the stability and privacy and security of Zoom. Maybe you're right. I mean, is Zoom as bad as Huawei? I don't know. We're probably going to find out the hard way.
Do you know what, Sheila? I think if there is a silver lining, I think we've discussed this, whenever this pandemic ends, I would love to see the idea of Fortress North America. And I do see, I was listening on Patriot on Sirius XM the other day, and it was I think it was a service. It was, I can't remember what the service was for. I think it was payroll. And what they stressed in the ad, and I think this is significant, I think you're going to see a growing trend of this for those companies that are doing this. You will be talking to a based in the USA agent. In other words, the idea of offshore call centers, sourcing things offshore, that's going to be seen as a negative given what China has done to the world, the multi-trillion-dollar kneecapping that we've suffered. And I think if it means, even for people that are maxed out on their credit cards and the lines of credit, if it meant, say, that $1,000 mountain bike, it's going to be, to make it in Canada, it's going to be an extra 150. Yeah, you know what? Do it. Because paying that up front, as opposed to another global pandemic and the misery we've endured for the last couple of months, it's worth it. And I'm hoping that's what comes out of this, that there's a realization that we, pay a little more, keep it here domestically so we're not beholden to a country that puts us in this kind of mess in the first place, Sheila.
Well, yeah, and the companies who resisted the trend, I suppose, to manufacture in China, they've actually been the real heroes in all of this because they haven't had their factories nationalized by the communist government. You look at the MyPillow guy and Jockey and a few others, they were able to immediately utilize their American manufacturing to create products for use in the American marketplace without China or another, an offshore rule preventing them from exporting their own goods to the country where they live and that they're financially based in. So there's that extra layer of, security that these companies who didn't go with the trend, who bucked the trend and supported American manufacturing, even when it didn't make economic sense, they're the heroes in all of this. As far as corporations are going, they were able to step up immediately.
Oh, 100%. And Sheila, even before this pandemic, for years now, my choice of running shoe is New Balance. Now, The reason is because some New Balance, not all of their models, but some of them are made in the USA, and it actually states on the outside of the shoe at the heels in big enough letters to read, made in USA. If that was cool 10 years ago, I think that's going to be super cool for Americans moving forward into the 2020s. The idea that something's domestically made, and if it means, like I said, paying a little bit more, it's worth it to, not enrich China and to keep North Americans employed. So let's hope that comes to fruition.
Well, let's just stop for a second here. I wear New Balance too. They have a really great line of trail running shoes, and I don't like to run on pavement. I hit the trails more often than not. Are they more expensive than Nike that's made in China, that's made offshore? Absolutely not. Are they as good of a shoe? I think they're better personally. I'm not sponsored by New Balance, but I'm not opposed to a sponsorship by New Balance.
Nor me.
No, nor David. If they want you to be to be the face of their product, great. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if products are actually more expensive to the consumer if they're manufactured in the United States. I know that manufacturing in the United States cuts into the profit of the corporation, but is it more expensive to the consumer? Not always. And all you have to do really is look at shoes to see that play out.
And by the way, Sheila, before you read another super chat, if somebody with some influence at New Balance is watching, I take a 13EE. By the way, that's another reason I love New Balance. They have width sizes. So 13EE for me. I don't know if you want to give your shoe size out, Sheila.
David, I can't believe how big your feet are.
You won't believe how often I've had that said about me.
Yeah, I imagine. Okay, let's keep going. We've got one from Vito Anthony D. Gives us $5 Canadian. Says, this is to symbolize my support of MP Derek Sloan and my lack of surprise at the usual nutlessness of Andrew Scheer. Sloan is right, in my honest opinion.
100% agree. And now there's Ontario Conservative MPs that are screaming for his head too. Boy, do they not get it. And I'm sorry, folks. I had a conversation with a viewer on the street who recognized me yesterday. He was talking about the next election, whenever that's going to be. And I really sent him off with a sad look on his face. I would not be surprised, Sheila Gunn-Reid, if it's a Trudeau Liberal majority. I really wouldn't, and that speaks volumes about where this Conservative Party is in terms of a leader, in terms of a champion for those who are right of center. And it just gets worse and worse with every passing week, as far as I'm concerned. Got to call it like I see it, Sheila.
Snatching victory from the jaws of defeat every single week. I mean, you couldn't have a more target-rich environment than Justin Trudeau. He's failing farmers. He's completely bungled the energy file. You have this whole block of people in the West who are just done with the country, in large part because of him. And all they're worried about is that they think criticizing Theresa Tam is somehow racist. And it's absolutely not. It's got nothing to do with her ethnicity or her gender or anything. It's the fact that when, not just when once, but when every time the interests of Canada collided up against what the World Health Organization wanted to do on behalf of China, she sided with the World Health Organization. And I've got another story coming out right away where this drive for political correctness actually caused more harm and more danger to Canadians who needed information in Canadian airports. And again, those are through publicly available documents presented to the Health Committee that nobody in the mainstream media bothered to pick up and read. And for some reason, our opposition party didn't read them either. And they are stacked on the Health Committee. So,
I guess they had I guess they had better things to do, Sheila. First of all, can't wait to see your next report on that. And secondly, you're right. The narrative that this is an act of racism, this is insidious. This is despicable. If Theresa Tam was a white, blonde, blue-eyed Scandinavian, Mr. Sloan would have made the same criticism about her political positions. This has nothing to do with race, as you rightly pointed out, Sheila. And the fact that it's not the usual suspects on the left hopping on this, but it's the fact that people on the right are also condemning Sloan. I cannot believe it. They're being deliberately blind to the facts of the matter, the facts that you go through with these incredible freedom of information requests that you work on. And they once again default to the, it's racist mantra. Again, I have no words for this, Sheila. It's just despicable.
Now, with Derek Sloan, we are seeing something, though, from him that is rare in the Conservative Party. And I say the official Conservatives, because there are a lot of Conservative Party supporters who are like, please drop the politically correct garbage and just say it like it is. Yeah. Derek Sloan's doing that. He didn't walk back. When you see Peter MacKay, he gets himself in a little hot water instantly. Like, he's issuing an apology. He's flogging himself publicly. Derek Sloan's like, no, it wasn't racist. I stand by what I said, and let the chips fall where it may. And you know what? Go ahead.
You mean Peter MacKay, the guy who's against diversity?
Yeah, no, I was actually happy to hear that, but whatever. It was like I was like, what the heck? Do I like Peter MacKay now? Continuing on with the nutlessness of the Conservative Party of Canada, why can't the membership decide? Why do we have all these party elites saying who we can and can't vote for? If we don't like Derek Sloan as a leader, we Conservatives will figure it out. The idea that these party elites are going to pick and choose this cabal of acceptable candidates for the party membership, it's anti-democratic.
I know.
And they're the people, and they're the ones who, if the Liberals are overlooking nominations and inserting their own candidates, it's always the Conservatives are pointing at the Liberals and saying, you guys are being anti-democratic. You got to let the people in the riding choose. And then they do this sort of stuff. This, 5 people or 6 people or a group of people who've appointed themselves the arbiters of right think, and the Conservative Party are only allowing a certain number of people who hold these acceptable ideas that are completely out of line, I would suggest, with the mainstream Conservative voter. They're the people that are going to run for leadership and not people representative of the people.
Yeah, they have lost their way. And by the way, it is incredible in a good sense, Sheila, that, like you said, Mr. Sloan has not taken back those comments and offered an apology and a mea culpa, because the way it is these days, folks, is that even if he did, he would still be smeared for life for saying what he said by the usual suspects, and now increasingly people that are part of this particular Conservative Party. So good for Derek Sloan in doubling down and saying, I meant what I said and I said what I meant.
Well, yeah, and if you want a reform-style fracture, like a legitimate fracture at a regional party, break away from the Conservative Party and relegate them to official opposition status for the next 10 years, this is how you do it. Keep it up. Keep it up. This is how you end up with the Wild Rose splitting off the PCs and then electing the NDP. This is how you do it. Keep it up. If this is what you want, if you want to wander in the wilderness for the next 2.5 terms, keep going like this, because you turn off normal people who want to support you but can't stomach it.
100%.
Okay. We've got one from Proud Boys Calgary, gives us $2.79 Canadian. Says, anybody want to go for a boat ride? Yeah. I'd love to go for a boat ride where my guns will just take a mysterious accident. Because it sounds like this week, coming Friday, with no vote in the House of Commons, in an order in council, so completely undemocratic, by the way, which is the whole problem with gun bans and gun confiscations, is that these rules are made and then they never have to go before the House of Commons. The Liberals are going to outlaw a whole bunch of guns that are right now non-restricted. So they're moving from the non-restricted category all the way to prohibited. So, you know, as a gun, if you're pro-gun bans, how are you ever going to find these? Because you don't know where they are. People have been buying them legally now for a very long time. They're out there. They're unregistered. Good luck getting them. But secondarily, this is undemocratic. Nobody has to be held accountable for this. And you're punishing legal gun owners for things that a maniac who got all of his guns illegally, they have to be all purchased illegally because he didn't have a gun license like I do. Some of them even came from the United States, so they were trafficked from the United States. And the Liberals' answer to all of this, to what happened in Nova Scotia, is to come after varmint hunters like me in Alberta. It's absolutely appalling, but it's so perfectly Liberal. They do this every time they get in power.
And that's not rhetoric either, Sheila. I mean, how many times do we see Liberals and progressives use a crisis? In this case, it's the combination of the coronavirus lockdown and the tragedy that occurred in Nova Scotia to do something against legal gun owners. And I speak of going back several years ago, High River with the flood there, where the RCMP started, I would suggest, illegally confiscating guns from legal gun owners. There is something about these people that when they sniff crisis in the air, they think that the law and our charter rights are no longer beholden to us.
Well, and how does this deal with the crime of illegally trafficked guns from the United States and people holding guns who are not licensed, who did not go through the training and the proper vetting that the rest of us did? Why are you attacking the people who did everything right and who are following the rules? And just to put into context how stupid this is, they're banning the Mini 14, which is a very popular varmint rifle. It's kind of cheap to shoot as far as shooting goes these days. It's a decent coyote rifle. It's something my 13-year-old daughter would shoot. The Liberals want to get rid of it because it's kind of scary looking for them. I think it's kind of cool looking. But it was used in the 1989 École Polytechnique massacre. So my 13-year-old daughter, who likes to shoot gophers and coyotes to keep the livestock safe, she's going to be punished because some maniac, long before she was ever born, did something with this rifle. They're going to also ban the AR-15, which, unlike the Ruger Mini 14, is a restricted firearm, so they do know where these are. And so they'll probably just come get them from you if you don't turn them in, and then you'll be charged with a gun crime because one day you were legal and the next day you weren't. But I mean, the early 80s was the last time that was ever used in a crime in Canada. The early 80s. So why are we banning them now? It's pretty clear they've been pretty safe for the last, 40 years?
Well, Sheila, the short answer is they'd love to ban everything, every gun, every bullet, every form of ammunition. And I mean, in the here and now, you speak of the maniac, Marc Lépine, back in 1989, not his real name, by the way, but you speak of him. Right. What about the maniacs of today? Could you imagine some gangbangers up in Toronto looking at this and, hey, Muggsy, it looks like your Beretta is under the ban now. We're not going to be able to use that shaking down people anymore. I mean, it's outrageous. The reason why they're called criminals is they don't obey the law, any law. Whether it's speeding or murdering somebody, you think that telling criminals that a gun is illegal makes them change their behavior? This is the fallacy of this kind of useless virtue signaling, Sheila.
Well, and it seems to me as though the Liberals are just listening to the RCMP bureaucrats sitting in the cubicles in Ottawa. And I'm not going to lump in the RCMP boots on the ground because a lot of cops I know, they go to my gun range. I've got cops in my family who are like, I got better, I like guns, and I have better things to do than hassle my friends and neighbors who are absolutely doing nothing wrong, who are following the rules and minding their own business. But the RCMP bureaucrats, the pencil-pushing nerds and political members of the RCMP, it looks to me like the Liberals are just taking the list they gave them and are just checking it off, because they've been going after these guns, or they've wanted to ban these particular guns for no reason whatsoever, except for the fact that they look scary for a very long time. And the number one example is the CZ858. It's a Czech rifle. And it was one night, gun owners went to bed a few years ago owning their CZ858, and they woke up in the morning. And CZ858, it's non-restricted, or it was at the time. So, if you had your gun license, you could own it. They woke up in the morning, and the RCMP arbitrarily, it didn't even go through an order in council, just arbitrarily moved that gun from non-restricted over to prohibited. So thousands of Canadians woke up in the morning as gun criminals, and many of them didn't even know. And to his credit, Stephen Harper said, oh, no, we're not doing that. And what they did was they gave an amnesty on that gun, and now that gun is back on the list. So since the RCMP tried to ban it last time, no crimes have been committed with it, and still they're coming after that gun again. So it's these people who, they followed all the rules, did everything right, wake up in the morning, you're a criminal.
But Sheila, wait a minute. It was something you said that is very significant about that particular gun. You're telling me that without any kind of parliamentary debate, without even an order in council, the RCMP just arbitrarily enacted their own law? That's outrageous.
Canadian firearms legislation gives the RCMP the ability, and that's why so many gun owners are like, we want to follow the rules, but we want to have people who are answerable to us, that we can hold accountable, signing off on these changes. And in Canada, the RCMP have the ability to just make things illegal. They can move things around in categories, and you don't even know about it until you wake up in the morning. Wow. And if you might not even know until it's too late. And so, like I said, to Harper's credit, with the CZ858, he granted amnesty for all those gun owners because but they didn't do anything wrong. It's just a strictly on paper crime. And that's why, if the Conservatives ever get back in power, and I doubt they will in the near future, I mean, that's one thing that they have to address. They have to take this power away from RCMP bureaucrats and give it back to Parliament so that people can hold the decision makers accountable.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have, I'm sure, heck pile of super chat.
Oh, you've got it. Did you say you have a super chat there, Sheila?
We have so
Lots.
many.
Okay, I'll stop talking.
Okay, we've got, and you know what's great is that was actually on our list of things to talk about, so I'm glad we checked that one off. Yeah. We've got one from Primpal08, gives us $5 Canadian. I remember a controversy a few years ago, China buying up seniors' homes in BC. I'd love to know where most of the seniors' homes deaths are occurring. Yeah, that's true. Dean Skoreko, he was at one point a Conservative Party candidate in BC. He's been following this very closely on Twitter. He's been saying all along, the BC government allowed China to buy up these homes, then, they follow the minimum level of regulation, and here we are. We have all these cross-contamination infections happening in BC seniors' homes. It's funny, isn't it, that most of the outbreak is happening in places that the government controls, and yet it's the rest of us on medical lockdown.
Oh, wait a minute, Sheila. Are you sure that's not racist to say something like that? The Chinese government now controls the biggest retirement home chain in British Columbia. I mean, we're not delving into racism there with that kind of a headline, are we?
Well, it depends on who you ask. We've got one from Gabriel Mullet, gives us $2 Canadian. Thoughts on Premier Ford action on the coronavirus? You know what, David? I'll let you take this one.
Well, I think, Premier Ford made a bit of a misstep last Saturday, Sheila. We had people on the lawns of Queen's Park. I covered it for Rebel. And there were people on the fringes who were a little loopy in terms of conspiracy theories and whatnot. But the majority of the people just want to get back to work. They want to get back to school. They're asking legitimate questions such as, why can't I open my mom and pop business when the LCBO and the beer store and Costco and Walmart can open? I agree. They're even saying, give me the yellow light opening, so-called. I'll do the precautions. I'll put the signage in and the hand sanitizer and the plexiglass partitions and the foot traffic directional arrows. I'll do all that. I just want to open up my shop. And Premier Ford said he called these people a bunch of yahoos. And I think that was a big misstep because, Sheila, I'm sure a lot of these people voted for the Progressive Conservatives, and for the Premier to attack people that are really just asking for legal treatment under the law. Like I said, big mistake. And by the way, I understand the protest is coming back to the lawns of Queen's Park this Saturday between noon and 2. I've heard it's going to be even bigger. And it's going to be very interesting to see, Sheila, now that the Premier has condemned these people, law enforcement and bylaw and the Queen's Park security on last Saturday did not issue a single ticket, even though there was ample opportunity to do so, both in the size of the gathering and the lack of 2-meter social distancing being observed. I wonder if that protest does come to fruition, and it looks like it will this Saturday, and it's going to be beautiful and warm and sunny. That's the perfect recipe to have a gathering, especially when you've been cooped up for weeks with crappy weather. I wonder if law enforcement is going to change their tact. I think it's going to be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, I was at a protest yesterday at the Alberta legislature. And, it's funny, having actually been there and then reading what the media wrote about what they thought was happening there, there's probably 300 people there. The media says, over 100, which is like anything, right? But, as protests generally seem to do in Alberta, a truck convoy broke out. But yeah, it was generally, there's a couple lunatic fringes, but I mean, not any more conspiratorial in nature than Elizabeth May fearing Wi-Fi. But they're all just normal people. I mean, there was a pastor's wife who said church is essential. She told me that, her religion and her right to practice her religion is a protected charter right. And she said, we just want to be able to worship and we'll follow the rules. We'll sit 6 feet apart. We'll make sure that we are following all the rules. But please, in this time of crisis, our faith is so important to us to get through all of this. I met like a little girl had made her sign. She was like 5 or 6. And it was like, I just want to go to the playground. And it was and that's how, and I was talking to her dad and he said, and my kids same way. We live out in the country and going to school is, we don't have neighbors. So going to school is her chance to interact with her friends. And she doesn't get to do that. They want to be able to go back to school. The dentist that I was talking to, he said, we deal with infectious diseases all day long. He's like, I know how not to get HIV while working on a patient. Surely I can follow the protocols since I do anyway to work on my patients to make sure that their dental needs are being assessed. And yet we can't do that in Alberta. Jason Kenney has said, we're working towards opening up, but there's no firm timeline. And it's getting ridiculous because in Alberta, the outbreaks are in meat plants and in nursing homes and the people who are exposed to people working in the meat plants. It's not the rest of us. It's not the welding shop. It's not the church. It's not the dentist's office. And it's time to let these people get back to work.
I agree. And by the way, Sheila, this is a way we can segue into another issue here, that when it comes to the right to worship safely, as you suggested, Look what we see happening here. I know this is happening in Ontario municipalities, but we've had the Church of God in Elmer under a police warning. I don't know if they've issued a ticket yet to Pastor Hildebrand, but this is the church that conducted a sermon in its parking lot with cars, with their windows rolled up, with the sermon coming in via a stereo broadcast. They're being condemned by the authorities, and yet they are doing nothing worse than people going to Costco or Walmart in far greater numbers and getting out of their cars to line up and to shop. And they, this Church of God in Elmer, they're adamant this Sunday at 10:30 a.m. they're going to conduct that service. Let's see what law enforcement does. At one point, I understand they were threatening to roadblock the church. Keean Bexley's filed 2 excellent reports of street preachers getting big tickets for feeding the homeless. And yet in some Ontario municipalities, Sheila, Mississauga, Ajax, Toronto, guess what? The noise bylaw has been altered for mosques so that they can broadcast the call to prayers. Just think about that. They're broadcasting a call to prayer to a mosque that is shut down and empty. There's nothing to come to. And that is being allowed, and it's being embraced with all the liberal usual suspects, such as Paula Fletcher, the Toronto councillor who used to be a member of the Communist Party, I believe in Manitoba, meaning that she'd be an atheist, presumably, and would be somebody on the Islamist list of time to bring them to the soccer stadium, and it's not to watch a game of football, if you know what I mean. So I see this as a terrible double standard, and I don't understand why people that aren't breaking the law, in my eyes, are being persecuted, and others who want to break noise bylaws and broadcast I don't know if you can call it music. What would you call that sound? And basically, the opinion is you are going to listen to this whether you like it or not. And even though there's a law, guess what? Our political leaders have given us an exemption. Sorry, suckers.
Yeah, it's very strange to see the laws being tightened up for some religions and then loosened for others. Has Pastor Hildebrand suggested that he call, maybe let's suggest to him, if you're watching, Pastor, why don't, when the police show up, just say that the broadcast that you're doing to people's cars is a call to prayer, which it is. It's not the
that's
call to
brilliant.
Prayer, but it's a call to prayer. And if other people are getting away with it, why can't you? And he's doing it in actually a less invasive way, because you have to tune into the radio station, the where the signal is being broadcast to for him. I watched that interview you did with Pastor Hildebrand, and I felt slightly ashamed of myself because I feel like I haven't fought hard enough to practice my own religion in all of this. And he said, if I'm not willing to get a ticket or to be arrested for my faith, then what kind of pastor am I?
Wasn't that a great quote?
It's great, but it's perfect, but it's embarrassing. I'm Catholic. I think everybody knows that. I don't hide it. My religion is, we're supposed to thrive under persecution. We're warned that we're going to be persecuted. We're supposed to face it. My religion is soaked in the blood of martyrs. We call them saints. And yet, I'm not banging on the door of my church saying, find a way to open up, because people need their religion right now. They need the strength that they garner from their religion right now. And I haven't done that. And a lot of us haven't done that. And, I think we all need a little more Pastor Hildebrand in our personalities, because boy, that guy is something else. And he's going to be back at her again this Sunday. Yeah. So, go ahead.
And Sheila, let's be clear. I don't think he's breaking the law the way the law is written by having people of the same family seclude themselves in their vehicles. It's not as though Pastor Hildebrand opened the doors of the church and he packed in over 100 people. I don't think there'd be a lot of sympathy for that given the rules the way they're written right now. But he didn't do that. The church is closed. It's completely locked down. I saw it myself. This was people practicing a form of self-quarantine in their automobiles. So what's the problem? Anyways, I understand from Mr. Producer, we have lots of super chats. So thank you very much,
folks. Super chat. We've got one from Observer Dude, gives us £5. In the UK, airports are open and people landing aren't being tested or quarantined. Apparently, they just come in. That wouldn't surprise me. It's that wouldn't surprise me. David, as you found out, the screening measures seem to be more strict in third world places than first world places, where we are concerned less with health and safety and more about being politically correct.
Correct.
We've got one from Abu Baker Al Puff Daddy. Good morning, Sheila and David. What was your most memorable out of province assignment for the Rebel? What happened? Why was it memorable? Oh, I got a few. I've gone to a lot of places I never imagined, like a backwoods farm woman like me would ever go to, or places that I have no interest in going to them just to visit. But to go to these places that I've gone to, kind of fun. Like, I think maybe the funnest thing I did was when Mark Morano from Climate Depot dressed as the captain of the Love Boat and then boarded the Greenpeace ship, ringing a bell. And because the night before, Greenpeace had boarded a coal ship and invaded a coal ship. So Mark Morano thought that he would do the same, and he'd dress on there and he would go there and dress as the Love Boat captain, and he boarded their ship. And then they called the cops on everybody. And I remember I ran away a little bit because I just, you don't want to get detained in a foreign country. And I had other things I needed to do that afternoon because, you're only there for a limited amount of time and people have crowdfunded your trip there and you don't want to spend half your day in police custody. So I'm like, we got to book it out of here. We got things to do and stories to file. So that's what we did. And I don't actually know what happened to Mark Morano, if the police ever got him or not, or if he was detained. But he's loose these days. So it obviously all came out in the wash. What about you, David?
Well, first of all, I love Mark, and I got to meet him in Washington last summer. It was the most memorable out of province experience, I would say, Kian and I had these 90-day flight passes that we utilized from August till early November. And my very first use of the flight pass was in early August, and I went out to British Columbia to ask Jonathan, a.k.a. Jessica Yaniv, some questions. And it was memorable for all the wrong reasons, i.e. getting a cane smashed over my head and shoulders by Jonathan and getting the iPad thrust into my Adam's apple and forehead by Mama Yaniv. There's the circus attraction right there. And there's little Mama. And, Sheila, it just goes to show you, I have a book at home. It's called Not So Funny When It Happened. And it's a collection of the best travel writers in the world writing essays about their very worst travel experiences. They are laugh out loud hilarious, even though some of them involve serious personal injury. But that's what you want to read about. You don't want to read about someone going to the Caribbean and it was perfect 28 degrees every day and the margaritas were delicious and the ocean was warm. Yeah. No, you want to read about, I was in Spain and there was a running of the bulls that nobody told me about. And I'm suddenly running for my life as a horn goes into my thigh. At the end of the day, I think that video got a lot of views, and and the epilogue, hopefully there will be a happy ending, and that will be Jonathan in a court answering for that terrible assault. But anyways, more super chats, I understand.
Yes. I was just thinking a lot of my more memorable out-of-province experiences involve Mark Morano. But when he was arrested by Moroccan security forces, when he shredded the Paris Accord in front of everybody in Morocco, and he was taken away, and I never saw my laugh mic again. That. Okay, we've got one from Kaylee Smith, $2 Canadian. Sheila and Dave, I don't think Canadians should take medical advice from Dr. Tam. She smokes 2 packs a day. I mean, listen to her voice. Yeah, she's got a little whiskey voice there, like Kathleen Turner. We've got one from David Anderson, $2 Canadian. Will Ezra move Rebel News to Alberta? after Wexit? I suppose it depends on the tax regime, doesn't it? We've got one from Annalisa S, $6.99. Canadian, shameful now that they are stopping people from visiting families outside of windows in Ontario. Yeah, that's heartless and cruel and horrific that they're preventing people from visiting their loved ones who are locked away from them in these seniors facilities. I can't think of anything more inhumane. And I actually spoke to somebody yesterday at that rally who was very upset about what's going on with families in palliative care in their final days of life. We've got one from Niggle, that's me, $10 Canadian, no super chat. Frank Danio, $10. Trudeau, Dr. Tam, and Patty have blood on their hands. The left will always go for racism. From the LibCon and the Liberal Party. It's the new shut up, isn't it? We've got one from Niggle, that's me, $10 Canadian. Will you guys autograph my Rebel News tracksuit that's being mailed out soon? If you could get it to me, I would love to autograph it for you.
Sure.
Yeah. I'll write my name over your heart. We've got one from John Veldkamp. Gives us oh my God, John, $100 Canadian. No
Nice.
super chat. Unbelievably generous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Koziar, $5.55 Canadian. Why does the Trudeau Foundation use a symbol that the FBI says is a pedophile symbol? We've got one from Primpal08, gives us $5 Canadian. Ford showing true colors with the Yahoo comment, I will never back a candidate who's afraid to be interviewed by independent media going forward. You know, I think a lot of people feel that way. They're kind of off-put at how politically correct Doug Ford is. And I hope every day that he comes back to where he came from. We've got one. I'm sorry. Oh, is that Manuel Vila? Oh, no, I don't know. I'm from Chile. I was tortured in Chile for 9 months when Pinochet took over in a military coup. Canada, wake up. It's on its way. Trudeau is a communist dictator. The writing is on the wall. Yeah, I think Justin Trudeau forgets just how many people have fled to Canada to flee oppressive regimes, Chinese people included. And they don't take kindly to his suck-uppery to strong-arm dictatorships. We've got one from Manuel Avila, $5 Canadian. We need your help to fight mandatory vaccination. Kian, I think, said it best. If there's a vaccine and it's not mandatory, he'll probably take it. But the second they make it mandatory, he said, throw me in jail. So, Scooby Doo-Doo on your head. Okay. I don't read the names until they show up on my screen. Gives us $10 Canadian. Thank you for all the great digging that you do, Sheila and Menzie. Thank you very much. That's kind. Observer Dude gives us £5. Did you see the footage of crowds of people clapping for the NHS with no social distancing? Yeah, that happens a lot, doesn't it? I mean, John Tory, the mayor of Toronto, he posed for that photograph with the health workers and nobody was social distancing. And our health minister had all of her health bureaucrats crowd together in one big family photograph as she was telling everybody else that you need to stay 6 feet away from your loved ones. It's crazy.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Excuse me. Are we done? Yeah. Yes, we're at the end and we're 2 minutes over.
We are 2 minutes over. Folks, once again, I want to thank you sincerely for tuning in. I want to especially thank all the super chatters for your donations. It's so greatly appreciated, especially in these dark days. So on the behalf of Sheila Gunn-Reid and me, David Menzies, stay safe, and we'll see you again on Tuesday. Take care.